Sweet, what is going on, guys? Welcome to another video. I'm your boy Narik Chase, and in this video, what makes a good video game villain? I was doing a top 100 video game villains list, and I was like, you know what? All of these characters are really cool, but I want to delve into why I like these characters. Now, for those who don't know, normally when I, rate my villains, I rate them in two categories. Does the villain have personality? And is the villain badass? Now, when I say personality, I'm also include like an interesting backstory, relationships with other characters, motivation, his actual personality. I always include that in that. And of course, when it comes to badass, like what kind of abilities is he or she capable of doing? Have they done anything awesome? Have they outsmarted someone? Have they manipulated? Just generally what the hell that they can do that threatens other people. And one of the characters that I've said is always like in my top 10 video game villains of all time is Akuma. Now, Akuma's motivation basically is to fight, train and fight. That's basically his thing. Just train and fight the most badass people that he can fight, so that way he can become stronger or test his strengths out. Now, in terms of his actual personality, yes, I guess you could say he's somewhat of the cliche typical bad guy. Not really a bad guy. I would think he'd say he's more of an anti-villain, because he doesn't really go out his way to be like evil. But, you know what I'm saying, he does have his own sense of honor, but he's mostly just a badass dude when it comes fighting and throwing down, throwing them hands or what have you. And I think that's an interesting motivation, because it mirrors that of Ryu. Ryu's thing is to get stronger, train, and fight powerful opponents. So there's the dynamic of there's two sides of it, where Ryu does it to get stronger, Akuma does the exact same thing. But Akuma does tend to kill people that he fights. Aside from that, I really wouldn't say that Akuma has like the best personality in the world. I mean, yes, he's very strict, very reserved. Unless he's fighting, he doesn't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Shao Kahn is another example of a character I think has a decent personality, but it doesn't really shine out like that. Also, what he does to reinforce his claim to the throne, his claim to these different realms, is his strength, his abilities, that ultimately make him badass. Now, there are certain other characters that I think actually have a bit more personality. Pretty badass, but you don't necessarily get to see it. Ardeen, an overall villain of Final Fantasy 15. Now, if you watch the movie and you kind of play the game too, you realize that he's just this very, kind of like this manipulative, outspoken, funny, goofy type villain. And that's why I said, like, with a character like him, he has a very, 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 very interesting and engaging personality. Yes, he has a really messed up backstory, and you do understand like his motivations and where they do come from. But it's his personality that I think that ultimately makes him just really cool. I mean, he's one of those villains like you can easily tell he's sketchy, but he easily makes you underestimate him because of how goofy he is. When ultimately we do see the actual turn of his personality in 15 later on in the story, you realize that this guy's, he's got a pretty good front, you know what I'm saying? But you realize the dude's ultimately just straight up, he's a pretty badass dude. He managed to turn all these people into demons. He managed to blot out the light of the world and create all of these hellspawn demons that just running amok every damn where, and just having this war just wage on the deaths of all of these people. Like, this dude is not playing. How do you gauge a villain, especially concerning the motivations? Because some villains are more personal to the protagonist, whereas other ones are not even really personal. But the threat of them is very massive. Take the Reapers from the Mass Effect series I haven't finished playing, but the overall threat of them looms across this whole galaxy, and it's up to the players to unite this galaxy against these badass Reapers who essentially are committing Galaxian genocide, basically. Those types of stakes, as well as I think the diversity of the Reapers themselves, as well as the various agents that are under them that are there to help push along the invasion and the genocide and everything, that makes them a really credible threat. Think about the Flood, the same thing. As a villain against the Force, I think they're pretty relevant. After all, they do consume everything. Any species, damn near, they have a use for them. When it comes to electronics and stuff like that, the Flood actually can get into stuff like that. So that's what makes them very memorable. The Gravemind in Halo 2 had so much presence, especially considering it was the reveal of it. You didn't know that there was this brain behind the Flood. When we see this Gravemind in Part 3, it feels less threatening and it feels like it has less of a personality, because essentially the execution of how the Gravemind was put into the game. There was really no direct contact with it like we got in Halo 2, so that way we couldn't fully gauge his personality, but you do see the threat of it throughout the game, where it is calculating presence and it is trying to accomplish what it's trying to accomplish, which is basically eat everybody or consume or assimilate. Think about the Necromorphs from the Dead Space series. Basically a virus that revives and transforms dead bodies into these monstrous creatures. Now that right there, as a villainized force, is pretty threatening. Definitely the badass. If we talk about characters like Nightmare from Soul Calibur, Nightmare by no means has an interesting personality. Nightmare as a villain, I actually like him because he's straight badass. He is raw power. And fighting him, he would fuck your shit up. Another one of my favorite video game villains that has a really interesting, really engaging personality is Osmond Saddler. And I wanted to put him, pit him against Albert Wesker, and kind of just have like a head-to-head episode of these two, because I feel like even though both of these characters are pretty badass, I do like Saddler's personality a lot more. He's very charismatic. He has this dark sense of humor. You get a bit of dark humor from Wesker. And going on to what makes a good villain, I think this is one of the areas the Resident Evil series fails in, is a lot of their villains are just generic. Nobody wants to just have a mad scientist that just wants to fucking take over the world for no damn reason other than the fact that he feels entitled. Look, I don't mind if they have that type of mentality, but don't make them generic. Hojo from Final Fantasy VII. He's got that anime-ish mad scientist, thinks he's better than everyone, he's a genius type of a personality, which I don't really like, but I like Hojo because of what he's done in the game. His actions have basically set the stage for everything that happens in Final Fantasy VII, including the prequels and the sequels. So everything that's pretty much jumped off is because of him, basically. And it goes back to Resident Evil, where a majority of the villains just fucking suck. Wesker's sister. If this was a movie, I would say she had damn near nothing to do. Like with her, she had no personality really. You never really got an interesting moment where her character sat down from Claire and Moira and just had this interesting, really cool back and forth. It was really intense. It was really engaging. You never really get this with this character. You never really get to see much about her or her past or anything outside of the fact that, yeah, she's Wesker's sister, but you never get a cinematic sequence where those two characters are interacting, which would have made the character much more interesting. Even when I looked up information on this character, I couldn't find anything like worth a damn. And this is like when I went back and did my video where it was the Far Cry series. It was Pagan Men versus Vaz Montenegro versus Joseph Seed. And I loved all three of these bad guys. Yes, I wish there was a little bit more to their backstory and motivation, in which I think Pagan Men and Joseph Seed actually had better backstories than Vaz, to me. But I like Vaz. He was crazy, but he had an interesting personality. I like smart, intelligent, crazy. That's unpredictable, and he had a lot of that. But I really enjoyed Pagan Men. He was very flamboyant, but I liked that he had these really weird, deep moments as a character, probably because of his connection to the main protagonist. But I liked him. I really did like him. Yes, he was ruthless. He was cruel to kill people, you know what I'm saying? But I really liked his personality. Joseph Seed, game villains, I thought was actually really good. He was really cool. He was really engaging. I loved the sequences of his character. The Wither Storm from the Minecraft story mode game. But I guess you could say go back to original classical villains such as like DDD, Bowser, Wario, K. Rool, Meta Knight. You know what I'm saying? They're interesting because of who they're connected with. That makes him like an interesting villain type character, because Mario is, without a doubt, the most prominent video game character like at this point ever. You know what I'm saying? You think games, Mario will be like one of like 5 characters you think of. Next to probably Pikachu, maybe Link. Mario is definitely on top. I would say Sonic, but a lot of these games have fallen off. And he's starting to slowly but surely come back a little bit, but Bowser isn't like an interesting villain. He isn't. But it's his rivalry with Mario that makes him such a prominent bad guy. K. Rool's rivalry with DK makes him such an interesting bad guy. Now, having said that, let's take that back to the relationship, the rivalry between Ryu and Akuma. You know what I'm saying? They both have this same lifestyle. It's just one of them has just went to this dark side of it and just loves that dark side, while the other one fights that dark side off. But going back again to what I was saying, these force of nature type characters, think of Sin from Final Fantasy X. He's just this big creature that's just been made to just destroy everything. Yes, the story behind the creation of the creature itself is really deep and engaging. It's really complex, and it's a really interesting twist that's actually in the game. And even when you fight this motherfucker, because he is hard, it's a huge ass mutated whale, basically. And when I say huge, this motherfucker's huge. Huge. Stupid big. Stupid big. You know how you got the movie Super Bad? It's a stupid big. And don't say stupid big, it's stupid big. Another villain that I thought was actually pretty good, but it's because he was misguided, and he was an asshole too, is the Prophet of Truth from the Halo series. And it goes back to Joseph Seed. A religious connection, a religious belief that is so strong you are willing to kill and destroy. Now, if you're going to go to that extent, let's look at the Didact. The Didact is an interesting villain. He's very philosophical. The game doesn't reveal enough about the character. And I would say he's badass, but I don't think it's to the level that it could have been. And then you got games like Diablo, of course, Badass Force, Lady Arkham from the Batman Telltale games. Although she has made my top 10 favorite Batman villains, because her story, everything she did in that game was fucking awesome. I understood the reason why she was doing what she was doing. I liked the character. She was badass. She had good motivation. So, like a character like that, like the Joker. Obviously, the Joker has a lot of great pull in the game, and he's such a popular character in the game that they just had to put him in all 4 of the damn games. Honestly, he's a psychopath. He has no problem killing people. It's dark humor. But at the same time, he's very intelligent. He's very charismatic. He's very resourceful as well. Such a popular character. He's especially in the Arkham games, because he does test Batman, especially mentally. One of my favorite characters in Fallout 4 is Kellogg. Why I like this character so much? Because I will say the character was totally underutilized in this game. But after he's dealt with, you learn about his character. You learn that he was a good man. And through happenstance in the wasteland, in the Commonwealth, you know, a lot of misfortune befell him, and he generally just started turning into this, I don't want to say a villain, but a bad guy. I'm not going to say a bad guy. I'm going to say this, a guy that's willing to do whatever it takes. Think about Kazar from Fallout New Vegas. I don't give a shit about Kazar. I don't find him to be an interesting character in the slightest. Me personally, I think he's a giant asshole. That's it. Now, what he's done is admirable. You know what I'm saying? He's done a lot that affects the whole Fallout New Vegas, the whole Republic or whatever. There is a lot more that I want to delve into when it comes to these video game characters, what makes a good villain, and a lot of it has to do with story, a lot of it has to do with the personality, a lot of it has to do with being badass. And there's a lot of villains out there in the gaming world that I wish I could have brought up. Handsome Jack is one of them, where this man is just fucking insane. And he's funny, he's badass, he has a lot of personality, and he don't give 2 shits. So I had to throw him in there. I had to find some way to put him in there. But there are other characters, of course. Sepiroth. badass personality, but he is just a fucking beast on the battlefield. But just know that there are tons of video game bad guys, and I just want to throw some thoughts out there, get some examples on what makes an interesting bad guy, what makes a good video game villain. Guys, in the comment section below, let me know. In fact, who are your favorite video game villains, and why do you like them? That's what I want to know. Be sure, guys, hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on this channel, and we'll definitely catch you guys later.